Breaking news out of the global south. While the world watches Israel and Iran inch closer to full-scale war. While American warships move into the Strait of Hormuz. While European leaders scramble behind closed doors in Brussels. A voice has emerged. Not from Washington. Not from Tel Aviv. Not from Tehran. But from Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. Ibrahim Traoré has just stepped into a geopolitical storm that could shake the foundations of the global order. And tonight, it's not the Middle East or the West that's calling the shots. It's Africa. Stay with us, because what Traoré just did might be the start of something far, far bigger than anyone expected. Before we go deeper, if you're tired of Western-controlled narratives and want the truth about Africa's rise and Traoré's revolution, hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you never miss a single update. This is the front line of the new global war, and you need to be ahead of it. What we're witnessing is not just politics. This is a seismic shift. In a confidential diplomatic cable leaked just hours ago, multiple Western intelligence agencies are reportedly on high alert following Ibrahim Traoré's latest moves. Moves that openly defy US and Israeli warnings about staying neutral in the Middle East conflict. According to senior sources in West African intelligence, Traoré has allegedly initiated back-channel communications with Iranian and Russian operatives, raising alarm across NATO. But here's the twist: Traoré isn't doing this recklessly. This is a calculated entrance into one of the most volatile global tensions in decades. Because for the first time in modern history, an African leader is stepping onto the battlefield of global diplomacy as an equal, not a pawn. While France pleads with the African Union to issue a statement of neutrality, while US envoys rush to Ghana, Nigeria, and Senegal to contain the Sahel movement, Traoré remains silent. Silent, but not inactive. Reports out of Ouagadougou suggest that military and strategic advisors from Mali and Niger have arrived for a joint security briefing, likely connected to rising instability in the Middle East. But this isn't just about defense. It's about positioning. Because Traoré knows, and Washington knows, that Africa holds the cards now. The US needs uranium. Europe needs gold. Israel needs diplomatic support at the UN. And Iran? Iran needs strategic allies outside of traditional Islamic circles to break Western sanctions. So what happens when a bold, unapologetic African leader decides, "I will not be silent. I will not take sides dictated by the West. I will stand for Africa's interests"? You get panic. You get headlines. You get a tremor in Washington, in Tel Aviv, and in London. Because this isn't just a statement. This is a reversal of power. Western analysts are calling it irresponsible, dangerous, and destabilizing. But deep down, they know it's not about Burkina Faso alone. It's about the message Traoré is sending. Africa is no longer the arena of the world's wars. It is now a player in them. And here's where it gets even more intense. UN insiders now suggest that Burkina Faso, with quiet backing from Mali and possibly Algeria, may propose a non-Western peace initiative for the Israel-Iran conflict, one that excludes both the US and the EU. If that happens, it would be the first time in modern geopolitical history that an African-led bloc offers a resolution in a Middle East conflict without Western oversight. Do you understand the weight of that? Not only would it undermine decades of US foreign policy, it would signal a massive reconfiguration of global diplomacy led by the very continent the West has always underestimated. But let me ask you, do you really think the US will just sit and watch that happen? Do you think Mossad and the CIA will allow Traoré to reshape the global narrative? This isn't going to end with meetings and press statements. Something deeper is brewing. Something darker. Because the moment Traoré becomes more than just a revolutionary, the moment he becomes a regional architect of peace, power, and independence, he becomes a target. And make no mistake, there are already whispers in Langley, in Paris, in Tel Aviv. How do we stop him? How do we contain Traoré before Africa fully wakes up? The room was silent. Not in Ouagadougou. In Washington. Behind locked doors, inside a secure Pentagon briefing room, the tone had changed. What was once dismissed as a military coup in a poor African country had now evolved into something far more threatening. Because Ibrahim Traoré wasn't just refusing Western control. He was reshaping the balance of global power, one strategic alliance at a time. According to confidential NATO communications intercepted by sources in West Africa, a top-secret task force has been activated to begin what they call containment operations across the Sahel. The target isn't a nation. The target is a man, Ibrahim Traoré. Because the Pentagon believes Traoré is now the single most influential African actor capable of tipping the global scale in favor of Iran, Russia, and China, at the exact moment the Middle East is on the verge of explosion. Let's break it down. Iran is under pressure. Israel is enraged. The US is overstretched in Ukraine, Taiwan, and the Gulf. Europe is financially bleeding. And suddenly, Africa rises. Not quietly. Not diplomatically, but with defiance. Traoré's bold refusal to condemn Iran's recent missile development program at the UN, backed silently by Mali and indirectly by Russia, was the final straw. That move triggered what Western think tanks are now calling the Sahel Protocol, a behind-the-scenes Western emergency plan aimed at sabotaging any African regime that aligns with the anti-dollar coalition. But Traoré already knew. He knew the attacks would come, not with missiles, but with money. Because if the US can't bomb you, they'll bankrupt you. Just last week, 4 major Western banks froze financial channels linked to Burkina Faso, citing security concerns. International aid was paused. IMF delegates suddenly went silent. French officials whispered about renewed sanctions. But none of it broke him. Instead, something historic happened. The African Financial Sovereignty Pact. For the first time, Traoré, with covert backing from Guinea, Algeria, and a Chinese shadow consortium, signed a multilateral gold for oil and grain agreement. No US dollar. No SWIFT system. No World Bank oversight. It was signed in absolute secrecy in Bamako. It was coded in encrypted Mandarin. And it was backed by real gold. What does this mean? It means Africa has begun its own economic war, and Traoré is the general. And now, the West is scrambling. French drones spotted near Burkina Faso's borders. NSA intercepts reveal pressure on ECOWAS to denounce extremist leadership in the Sahel. US intelligence begins funding online disinformation to paint Traoré as a pro-Iranian radical. But here's what they won't say in public. They fear him. They fear that Traoré will become the first African leader in the 21st century to create a unified anti-imperialist economic and defense bloc, outside of any Western framework. And with Iran courting African nations diplomatically. With Russia offering military guarantees. With China silently backing infrastructure and intelligence systems. The world is heading somewhere the West never imagined. A multipolar future, where Africa is not a spectator, but a commander. Now let's talk predictions, because what's coming next may shake even the strongest democracies in Europe and the Americas. If Traoré moves forward with the Pan-African Petrogold Initiative, where oil is traded using African-mined gold, backed by Sahel reserves, we could witness the beginning of the collapse of the petrodollar. And the fallout? Backhand index pointing right US inflation explodes. Backhand index pointing right European gas prices skyrocket. Backhand index pointing right Western control of global trade crumbles. It would be the biggest financial upheaval since World War II, triggered not by Wall Street, not by Beijing, not by Moscow, but by a 36-year-old African revolutionary in fatigues. This is why he's now being tracked 24/7. US satellites monitor every convoy leaving Ouagadougou. A secret joint Mossad, DGSE surveillance unit has been redeployed to Senegal. And internal briefings in Washington are now naming Traoré as a Level 1 strategic disruptor. That title puts him on par with Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin, and the Iranian supreme leader, not because of nukes, but because of ideological power. Traoré doesn't need a missile. He has the youth, the gold, the oil, and the truth. And that terrifies the empire. But the biggest question remains. Will Africa stand with him when the empire strikes back? Because make no mistake, they will. It may be in the form of sanctions, regime change, media propaganda, or covert destabilization. But the war has already begun. And this time, it won't just be fought with bombs. It will be fought with narratives, currencies, alliances, and raw courage. The countdown has started. Disclaimer: the content shared on this YouTube channel is entirely fictional and created for educational and entertainment purposes only. The stories about the life of Ibrahim Traoré are imaginative works of fiction and do not represent real events, news reports, or verified facts. These videos are not connected to any official source or news outlet, and viewers should not interpret them as factual representations. Thank you for watching and supporting creative storytelling.